we're gonna get a little TMI. The thing that I am so thankful that I did at the end of my pregnancy is... Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. Hi, my name is Julia, and for today we're going to be talking all about my third trimester of pregnancy. Now, if you haven't already, go ahead and check out my first and second trimester updates before you watch this one, because there are some things that I talk about in those videos that I actually carried out for my entire pregnancy, and I'm not going to talk about them here just out of redundancy's sake, so just make sure you watch those first. I do want to preface this video by saying that the third trimester was actually my favorite, and I recognize that I had a very easy pregnancy. I was very blessed to have no complications in my pregnancy, and so I just want to say that going forward that this is going to be a relatively positive video. I don't have very much to complain about for the third trimester is what I'm saying. All right, we have a lot to talk about, so let's go ahead and dive right in with symptoms. So the most obvious symptom, if you will, of the third trimester is how gargantuan you're gonna get. Now, everyone's body is different and gonna react differently to being pregnant. Some women barely even have a bump the entire time that they're pregnant. That was not the case for me, okay, honey? No. I had a giant belly. Now, along with growing in your belly, I also really started to swell at the end of my pregnancy, specifically in my feet and my hands. And something that I didn't expect is that it's painful. I would wake up in the middle of the night with my joints in my hands physically in so much pain that they were waking me up. Now, this would kind of ebb and flow. I didn't have this all the time. It would kind of come for a couple days and then it would go away and then I'd have it again. So this was kind of one of those minor annoyances, but it really isn't that big of a deal. I will say though, at the end of the pregnancy, when my feet and hands were so big, it felt like my skin was being stretched to full capacity and that they could explode at any moment. It was a sensation that I genuinely would like to never feel again. The other thing that started to really swell, probably starting around, I want to say once I got into like the 30s, in terms of weeks, in the 30s, I started swelling so much in my face and specifically my nose. Now it's interesting because as I was pregnant, I didn't notice these changes. I wasn't really fixating on any of these things. Honestly, I think my job kept me so busy that I didn't have time to think about what I looked like. But when I look back at pictures of myself from when I was at the end of my pregnancy, I'm like, whoa, she blew up. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade has begun. Grab a rope because she blew up like a balloon. So that's very interesting, especially like when I look at the old pictures of my nose, it looks twice the size as my normal nose. It's very bizarre, but it clearly went down after giving birth. So if you're in your third trimester and you're seeing yourself swell, it will go down. Don't worry about it. It's gonna be okay. Now, this is something that I actually addressed in my first trimester recap, but completely forgot to talk about with my second trimester, and that is lashes. My lashes completely fell out and just died and were short for almost all of my pregnancy. It was awful, and one of the only things that I actually did notice and was insecure about throughout my pregnancy is how short and brittle my lashes were. It was horrible. As you can see, they have since grown out. Here, let me get closer. As you can hopefully tell, now that I'm postpartum, my lashes have finally grown back. Praise God for that. Praise God. I don't know exactly what happens during pregnancy to make your lashes decide to go away. I know this doesn't happen for everybody, but this is something that I actually talked about with my sister-in-law, and she had the exact same symptoms. So if it happens to you, don't worry about it. They'll come back. Take a breath. Now, a term that I'm sure you hear get thrown around all the time is nesting in your third trimester. And while I did feel this to an extent, I did not have this like crazy as some other women I see have it. Like I have seen some women vacuuming the walls and like washing the walls, like completely cleaning their ceilings, you know, doing all of these really crazy nitpicky cleaning things, which is totally normal and fine. I did not get quite that way. My nesting was more just that I wanted to have all of the baby's things ready. I wanted to have everything in line and ready and the room ready to go. And I just was like very wanting things to be a certain way rather than getting super uptight about cleaning, if that makes sense. Another symptom is dark nipples. Hey, we're talking about pregnancy here, so we're gonna get a little TMI. Obviously, God designs it so that when your baby comes out, they can find your boob to be able to eat. And let me tell you, yeah, it's kind of crazy how your hormones just shift at the end of your pregnancy and your nipples just get dark, 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 dark. But then again, when you're postpartum, it goes away. It's just very, very cool to see how God designed us so intricately and with so much intentionality to respond to pregnancy in certain ways to help us prepare for taking care of a baby. It's genuinely so beautiful. Now, another symptom that I had is heartburn, and if you've seen pictures of my baby, you've seen that head full of luscious hair. So we're gonna blame heartburn on that. Another very common symptom, which I kind of felt this again throughout my whole pregnancy, but it is just to another whole nother level in your third trimester, is shortness of breath. I felt like I was constantly gasping for air. Just in regular conversation, I'd be like, okay, just trying to get my words out. Hey guys, it is Editing Julia here, and I wanted to pop in really quick with something that I completely forgot to mention when I was recording this video, and that is how frequently baby would get the hiccups while I was pregnant in my third trimester. I would feel the hiccups, not mine, but the baby's, at least 2 times, if not 3 or 4 a day. Like, I'm not even kidding you guys. It was kind of unbelievable. I was like, is this normal? Should I be feeling the hiccups this much? Like, what's going on in there? But it's so sweet, and so just another little reminder that your baby's alive and doing well, and kind of miss it. I don't know if that's weird, but it was very sweet, and I miss it. And let me know if your baby also did this or is doing this in your belly currently, because I'm curious. Is this a normal thing? Does this happen all the time, or is this just dependent on your baby? Let's find out. All right, now back to the video. And then the last symptom is Braxton Hicks contractions, which for me did not feel anything like real contractions when I actually went into labor. They did not feel at all like the real thing. Without me controlling my stomach, I would see it completely just tighten up, and I could feel it. I could feel this like tightening up. It didn't hurt though. It wasn't like a contraction. I know for other women though, they can feel the same type of contraction that you would feel in labor as their Braxton Hicks, but that just wasn't my experience. Okay, now let's talk about appointments in your third trimester. So these appointments are a lot different from first and second trimester because, at least for me, I did not get any ultrasounds throughout my third trimester because I was not a high-risk pregnancy. They didn't really have any reason to give me any more ultrasounds. The only one that I think I got was just one of those little handhelds. It literally looked like a phone, and it was basically just to check the baby's position to see if they were head down. So that's something kind of interesting in your third trimester, is you don't really get to see the baby. You just have your second trimester, first trimester ultrasounds to look back on, and you're just counting down the days till your due date. You're counting down the days. Now, another appointment, which I actually don't remember if it was second trimester or third trimester, but I didn't talk about it in second, so I'm gonna talk about it now, is the glucose test. Now, I heard so many women prior to myself being pregnant, I heard so many women complain about the glucose test and how it's so horrible, and they're like, oh, I almost threw up. You guys, it's not that bad. I had the orange flavor. They didn't have flavors to choose from at my appointment. They only had the orange flavor. It just tasted like a flat orange soda. Like, it's not that deep. It's not like you're drinking poop. So if you have your glucose test coming up, do not fret. It's truly not that bad. Now, I will say that I chose not to get my dilation checked in my third trimester, and I think I will probably do it differently going forward in future pregnancies. I kind of do wish that I had, simply for even getting stretched out a little bit in preparation for labor and delivery. Now, of course, they would always, check baby's heartbeat and measure my belly to see where I'm measuring, make sure that we're good there, and we would talk about things going forward for labor and delivery. So that was very helpful. It's just nice for peace of mind to get to go to those appointments. And if you've never been pregnant before, another thing that's interesting about appointments is they get progressively closer and closer throughout your pregnancy. So you start out with them being weeks and weeks and weeks apart. And then in your third trimester, they're gonna want to see you every 2 weeks. And then as it gets closer, they're gonna see every 1 week. And then even as you get to 40 weeks, they're gonna probably try to see you 2 days a week, which that was not the case for me. I ended up giving birth very close to my due date. I went into labor on my due date and then had the baby 2 days later. Or 2 days later? Yeah, 2 days after my due date, I should say. So I didn't end up meeting any of the appointments that I had scheduled after my 40 weeks, but just so you know, they're gonna get closer and closer and closer and closer and closer until you have the baby. All right, now let's talk about my changing body and that big old bump. My lovely lady bump. So something that became very helpful for me pretty early on into my 3rd trimester was actually getting a bump or back brace or maternity brace. I don't know what the term is. That became so essential for me. Again, if you watched my 1st and 2nd trimester videos, you know that I was a preschool teacher at the time. So I was walking around on my feet almost all day long. And so having that extra support was essential. I tried several and this one was the best. I felt so secure. I felt so much tension and weight and strain being lifted off of my back and my lower belly. I lived in this thing. I absolutely loved it and will definitely be using it going forward in future pregnancies. So again, like I said, in the 1st and 2nd trimester, I used the Glaze by Dime and the, I think it's called like Stretch Marks Body Butter, something like that. I used that combination all the way until I gave birth and I did not get a single stretch mark, you guys. I swear by that stuff. Now, of course, I do want to preface that by saying genetics definitely have a role in this, and my mom was not prone to stretch marks in her pregnancies, and I guess I'm not either. So I just will, give that as a warning that if you do try these products and they don't work for you, there's also that genetic component. However, I will say these were so amazing with how much my skin was being stretched in the 3rd trimester and then even postpartum, because your body postpartum is still really stretched out and going through a lot. So again, I will leave those in the description box below because those are a match made in heaven. So I keep mentioning that I was very huge in my 3rd trimester, but I do also want to say that I was very comfortable with how big I was. Other than, like I mentioned earlier, how my hands and my feet would physically hurt and feel like they were going to explode. In terms of my stomach area and my bump, I never felt super uncomfortable. I never had crazy back pain. I never really had an issue sleeping in that regard. I was fairly comfortable in my body, which is, again, a huge blessing that I know a lot of women do not feel that way, during their 3rd trimester, which is completely understandable. So I just want to say that to say 3rd trimester does not have to be this horribly painful, uncomfortable situation. It actually can be very beautiful and can be something that's just a very happy time and something I always try to keep in perspective as I was, getting antsy and excited and just ready for the baby to be here, is I kept saying to myself, you know what? These are the last few weeks Ryan and I have together by ourselves as a couple, like once we have this child, there's no going back. There's no return. Like you have this baby forever. You have this child forever. You forever are a family now instead of just being you and your spouse as a couple. So I encourage you, if you're pregnant with your first, to really take advantage of this time because it can be so sweet if you're intentional about it. So then again, going along with the changing body conversation is clothing. Now I mentioned in my last video those linen pants that I love. I'll link those again down below in case you're interested. So those linen pants were amazing all the way up until I went into labor. And the other thing that's absolutely incredible during 3rd trimester is dresses. I lived in dresses. They just felt the most comfortable, the most flowy. You feel put together when you're in this very vulnerable state of being humongous at the end of your pregnancy. It just feels good to feel semi put together. So dresses will be your best friend. And I kind of opted for the more flowy dresses. I was very pregnant in the winter. It was December, so I was also trying to layer up quite a bit. I would wear tights and then I would wear my flowy dresses on top. But also what's really cute is some really form-fitting dresses that accentuate your bump and look so stinking cute. I'll go ahead and link some of my favorite dresses down below as well for you to peruse. Now, if I wasn't in dresses, I was in lounge sets. There is no in between. I couldn't fit into anything else. That was basically it. I did not purchase any maternity clothes because I knew going forward, I was like, no, it's just not really worth it. I can make other things work and it'll be fine. So I'm here to tell you, if you're in your third trimester and you're also hesitant about buying maternity clothes, I would say don't get any. I mean, really, you could probably thrift some, maybe like maternity jeans or like or maternity leggings. Maybe that would be the best thing to invest in. But other than that, dresses, lounge sets, it really isn't that long of a time, and the baby's going to be here before you know it, and you're going to be getting back into your regular clothes here pretty soon. So now let's get into the events that took place during third trimester. And this is probably one of the reasons why third trimester was my favorite, is because there were just so many happy things that happened during the third trimester and things that were so fun. And I just cherish these memories so fondly. And the first one is that our hospital supplied many different, just different birth types of classes and things like that where the couples can go to. And Ryan and I ended up going to 5 different events. Now, the first one was a baby class called New Life, the New Life series. And this was a very long class. This was several hours long, and it just went through lots of different things that you need to know for taking care of baby, like beyond the basics of eating, pooping, sleeping, like it went into detail about caring for this new life. I would say that this would be very, very beneficial if this is your first child, but even for future births, like it's kind of fun and kind of refreshing just to be in a class with other expecting parents and just to get to sit and be excited and start to daydream about getting to take care of your baby. Now, I don't know if this is because I have always really loved watching pregnancy and baby content ever since I was a little girl. I will say that a lot of the material that was covered in these classes were things that I already knew just because I had looked into them in my own time. I don't know if that's weird, but I have always been very, very fascinated and intrigued by pregnancy, delivery, babies, all of the things. And then Ryan, on the other hand, is a doctor, so he has done lots of studying on this type of material as well. So he and I both weren't ever really shocked by anything or like floored by any of the tactics that were talked about in the classes, but I could definitely tell by some of the other couples that it was very beneficial for them to be there. So I would encourage you, if this is a new topic for you, definitely look into baby classes to see what they offer. So that class was at 27 weeks, and then at 30 weeks, we ended up doing the labor and delivery tour, which was so wonderful. We were actually the only ones who were meeting with that nurse practitioner. And so it was very intimate, very nice to be able to go and see the space and to be able to visualize that ahead of time before the big day. And I just really feel like that helped with my mental preparation in going into labor and delivery, because I was able to kind of like, for lack of better words, like I could practice in my head what the space was gonna look like and have that expectation and just, be able to let go of the control kind of in that type of way. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. The next class that we took at 33 weeks was the breastfeeding class, which sounds kind of hilarious to take before the baby is here. But again, it's so helpful to know this stuff ahead of time, because that first week after the baby's born is a whirlwind, and you don't want to go to a breastfeeding class when you're freshly postpartum. So even though it sounds ridiculous, go to the breastfeeding class ahead of time. That way you know what to expect and know different positions that you can do ahead of time. I will give you a little heads up. I did end up getting a C-section, which was not planned. It was, I don't want to call it an emergency C-section. It was an urgent C-section. Let's put it that way. It had to happen, but it wasn't like, holy crap, this baby is dying, we need to get in there right now. It wasn't like that, but it was like, things will go bad if we don't get in there now. You see what I'm saying? So anyways, I say that all to say the breastfeeding class was beneficial because I wouldn't have known what position would work well with a C-section scar if I hadn't gone to this class, because I ended up for a long time needing to do basically this position where baby's head is here and they go back underneath your arm, which sounds very basic. It sounds very basic, but I feel like all the time what you see is head and then body going this way. That's what everyone thinks about when you think of breastfeeding. So to be able to know even different positions was so helpful. A week later at 34 weeks, we took the labor birthing class, which was so helpful again. That one was really practicing like different positions and techniques and tools you can use during labor that Truly, I am so thankful I took that class, and if it's offered for future births that, you know, Lord willing, if we have more kids, I will absolutely be doing that again, because it was amazing. It was wonderful getting to practice those things. And I just want to say, it is not awkward, and it is not like the way that they show it on TV when they show these Lamaze classes. They show these labor practice classes, and it's really awkward and weird, and they're putting you in these positions and they're telling you to breathe, and they're like, okay, now picture you're pushing the baby out. Like, it was not like that. It was very normal. It was just kind of them teaching you different positions. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but it wasn't weird. I think sometimes shows and movies can make it seem like these classes are weird, and it wasn't weird. So if you were hesitant about going, this is your sign up for the class. You will be so glad. Then at 36 weeks, we actually took 2 more classes. So I think I actually did that wrong. We signed up for 6 different programs that the hospital offered. So anyways, at 36 weeks, we took the baby basics class and then also the happiest baby on the block class. So those were 2 separate classes in the same week. So again, baby basics was a much more condensed kind of version of the first class that we took. And it was, you know, again, taking care of baby. It was very basic, but I'm still very glad that we went. There was still very valuable information. And again, it's just so fun to be around other families who are also expecting a baby. And then the other class was the happiest baby on the block, which I believe is based off of a book. I will link it down below if you're interested. And it was talking about the techniques of soothing a baby. So there are 5 S's for happiest baby on the block. And I don't really want to get into it just for like, how do these things work? When something's written in a book, are you allowed to openly talk about it and like reveal the information? Or are you supposed to just refer people to the book for copyright reasons? Like, I don't know. So we're not going to risk it. If you're interested, just check out the book. But I will say the techniques that we learned in that class were so helpful. So helpful, and they work. We were able to soothe Addie right off the bat when she was a newborn, and the techniques that were just discussed in that class were so helpful for calming a fussy baby. 2 more wonderful things about the 3rd trimester is my baby shower was in the 3rd trimester, which was so beautiful. It was thrown by my sister-in-law, mother-in-law, and my mom, and it was just so beautiful and so sweet to be showered. Genuinely, like, I felt so loved, baby felt so loved, Ryan felt so loved, and it was so beautiful. It was a very sweet bear theme. I will insert pictures so you guys can see, but it was just very sweet, very beautiful, the most perfect, gorgeous October day. And then right after my baby shower, Ryan and I left for our baby moon, and I recommend this to everybody. It doesn't have to be somewhere grand and overseas. We just went down to Florida, and it was so special and so sweet getting to have that time to spend together. And actually, in the time that I'm recording this, Ryan and I are about to go on another beach trip in the following week here, which is almost a year after we went on this baby moon. So it's gonna be so sweet getting to bring this baby with us and get to kind of experience all of this over again, but this time baby on the outside instead of on the inside. So if you're thinking about doing a baby moon, I definitely recommend it. It's so sweet to have that time. It's something so nice to look forward to as well in your 3rd trimester, as you're so big, as you're just waiting and so excited for your baby to come. It's nice to have other things to look forward to. So I definitely recommend saving your baby moon for 3rd trimester, probably more towards the beginning. That way you're not getting too close to your due date, but I loved it. It was wonderful. Now let's talk about all the things that I did to prep for labor. This is going to be our last segment. I'm going to finish it up because my storage is running quite low. So I'm going to talk quickly. I'm just going to quick speed fireball. Rapid fire. That's the word I was looking for. Rapid fire. I'm just going to list several of the things that I did to prep for labor. So I drank raspberry leaf tea every single day. If you don't know the benefits of that, go ahead and look into it. I ate dates every day. Go ahead and look into that as well. I took primrose oil, and I did take that vaginally. You can take it also orally. You can do both. You can do whatever you want, but that is supposed to help with your cervix and dilation on all of those things. So I took that. I did implement perineal massage. I was not super regular about it, but I tried to do as much as I could handle. Another thing that I did is colostrum collection. Anytime that we were sitting and watching TV, relaxing towards the end of pregnancy, I would hand pump and just try to get as much colostrum as I could for storage for baby, but then also because that can kind of help get labor going as you get towards the end. And something else that I did, which is kind of hilarious, is I would stretch pretty regularly throughout my pregnancy. I would even, while kids were on the playground at work, I would sit on the ground and just straddle my legs out and do stretches to the side, stretches out. I would try to keep my body moving, and I really do feel like that was beneficial towards the end of my pregnancy. Another thing that I did, and this is more for the mental aspect of preparing for labor, is I would hold ice in my hands. Now this is really stretching your mental game of being able to handle pain for long increments of time. So I would take a handful of ice and I would just stand over the sink and I would practice breathing. I would practice deep breathing, not hyperventilating, and holding the ice for a minute long at a time. And I'd give myself breaks in between, but I would just practice the mental game of trying to go somewhere else in my head and not focus on the physical pain that I was experiencing. And I do feel like that was very beneficial for me as I went into labor. Another thing that I read is Ina May's, I think it's called like Ina May's Guide to Childbirth or something like that. I will link it down below. I feel like that was a very helpful I feel like that was a very helpful book going into labor and birth, as it, again, that just really helped with my mental game. It gave me a very positive spin on birth. I think it's so easy to hear horror stories and just get very freaked out and fearful going into labor and delivery. And I feel like this book was very beneficial for me to just have positive stories to fixate on as I was going through labor and delivery, which, if you know in person me, you know that my birth experience was not at all what I wanted. But I will say that this book, again, was very helpful as I was experiencing it in real time. And then the last thing, again, we're ending with a bang here. We're ending with a little TMI, but this is how things go with labor and delivery, and it's messy and it's TMI. But the thing that I am so thankful that I did at the end of my pregnancy is I got a Brazilian wax, a full-on Brazilian wax. And yes, it's painful, but it also prepares you again for the intense pain that you're gonna experience in labor and delivery, because a Brazilian wax is not fun. But I will say that I was so kind of grossed out when I would think about being hairy postpartum and just, you know, you're gonna be bleeding, you've got lots of just junk as you were going through labor and delivery, and I just wanted to be clean down there. And you know, something that it ended up being a good thing, because I got a C-section. And when you get a C-section, it's pretty low. It's pretty low. And so they would have had to shave down there. I'm glad I got a Brazilian. I will definitely be doing it for future births. If you're considering it, this is your sign. Go ahead and do it. It's painful, all right, you guys, that is gonna wrap up this series. Actually, you know what? I haven't decided if I'm gonna do like a postpartum 4th trimester recap, but we'll just call this the end of this series. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope these videos were helpful for you, or gave you a giggle, or are just fun for you to sit back and watch and just kind of hear me talk about my experience. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below if you are expecting sometime soon, so I can be praying for you and your sweet little baby. Pregnancy is so beautiful. It is so complex. It is challenging physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, in all of the ways, but it is so rewarding and so worth it. And if you're pregnant, just hold on. Your baby is coming. Don't forget to cherish these last weeks that you have with your baby in your belly. Try to cherish those last kicks in the ribs that you can, and just soak up this time that you have with either just your spouse, or even if you have other kids, try to just soak up this time that you have before you're introducing this new family member to your crew. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a blessed day. Bye.